So a little secret here. If you built your application the way we demoed it in phase 3, you're probably done for phase 4. Now, why did I do that? Well, part of it is, why would I withhold the right way to do it and teach you the wrong way to do it and then show you the right way to do it? Like, by the way, hey. Part of it is, when you work as long on this stuff as I have, you just tend to write things the right way. And part of it is, sometimes you will use technology before you know why you're using technology. And what I'm hoping to show you is it's okay to follow along and get stuff done. But if you want to be a great technologist, if you want to be a great coder, or even security person or whatever else like that, it's important to see things, use things, but then go back and understand them. It's not to say you can't have a good career otherwise. It's just to say that by knowing what's going on, you make yourself that much more useful. You can understand the tool, understand the context. You can understand what might have broken or what's going wrong, and understand basically what's going on in the world around you. So going back to the application we built last time, we have our person class. And the person class was set up to hold all this stuff inside of here. So you got the toString method, you got all the parameters inside of there. Hopefully you built something like this. You're being asked to build one that represents your sales representative, your first name, last name, region, the amount they've sold, all the stuff that you're reading in from the file. Hopefully you have this file already. The other thing we created here was the reader file. So when we write it out, when we wrote it out, we were dealing with one person at a time. We were just writing that one person at a time. We didn't have to deal with a bunch of them. But when we were reading, we read a bunch of them from a file. And the easiest way to represent a bunch of them was basically using a list, whether we knew it or not. Whether we chose list or collection here is somewhat unimportant. A collection would have been backed by a list. Often I will use collection here because I just get a bunch of stuff. In this case, I chose list because it's just keeping it simple. I didn't want to get too wrapped up around these concepts. The idea of a list is pretty straightforward. But when we created the list here, notice the list on the left-hand side was the version of the interface. It wasn't the array list type here. I want the version of the interface here. And I specifically made the list to hold person objects. Again, you might have just coded this along, didn't understand it entirely. Maybe you were okay with that. Maybe you were like, I don't know what this is. Maybe you did it a completely different way because you didn't understand it. You could have stored this as basically a bunch of strings, or you could have done this array. The issue I have with the way the subject matter is lined up a little bit is it would have encouraged you, instead of creating this really great component, you would have been putting the stuff inside of your GUI code somewhere. You'd had a bunch of strings inside of there. And again, my goal is not to teach you bad ways and then break you of the habits. My goal is to teach you, I don't want to say the right way, but the preferred way, the better way, the cleaner way, the design appropriate way, the way most people would say is better. Maybe some won't. But again, we have the list, we have the people. Then we're looping through this guy. We're converting it line by line into a person object. And then we take, when we get down to the end of that, where do we do it here? If it's not a bad row, we add it to the list of people that's going on inside of here. And then we return that list of people. So this is something that might be brand new to you. The concept might be pretty new to you. Within a few weeks, few months, certainly within a year, if you code regularly, this will be something you just use as another tool. It'll be no different than using a string or a for loop or something like that. It's just something that's going to be a tool. It's going to be part of it. And then when we go to the main application over here, we have the design. We have this show button that we had. We had a couple buttons that did this, but in the show button specifically, I go off and I read the list of people. See, again, it makes our code so much nicer. Instead of having all that stuff listed inside of there, I have a component. And as part of that component, I have this list that comes back. And it's a really nice way of passing data, a nice clean bundle of data I get back. And then I'm using my fancy for loop inside of here. So my list of people, as we know, I don't need an iterator on that. I just use that list of people. It gets churned into one person at a time. For each person in the list, I go and append them to the list. And that's our assignment for phase 4. So again, if you didn't build it this way, if you built it directly in, you have all the reading happening directly in, you didn't do anything wrong. but the course author maybe tricked you a little bit into doing it, if you will, wrong to show you how to do it right. And sometimes there's some advantage to that. I mean, it's important to see errors and know how to fix errors and whatnot. But it's not like if I'm going to go teach you a golf swing, I first have you hold the club wrong and swing it a bunch of times and then teach you how to do it right. I mean, it's really hard to break bad habits. So if you built it the other way, my suggestion is break that habit right now. Use collections to store lists of data. The only time you don't want to use collections for lists of data is if you know you're going to be reading in thousands upon thousands of millions of rows, which is going to be too much for your application to support. But particularly if you know you need to deal with the whole list all at once and show it to a bunch of people and work with it and everything else like that, create a collection, store it in a collection. It makes life so much easier. So maybe you're thumbs up, all done, ready to go. Clean up your code a little bit and submit it. If you are, hopefully you've been playing with collections. Hopefully you understand that a little bit. And if you spent like 20 minutes and you've done all this stuff, if you haven't done validation, spend time playing with validation. My point being is, if you want to be a better coder, the only way to do that is by coding. If you want to be better at reading, you got to read more. If you want to be better at golf, you got to golf more. If you want to be better at singing, you got to sing more. And so if you don't care about coding, hey, take the break and work on some other stuff. But if you do want to be a coder, and there's another class you're likely to take that's going to have you do some coding, this is a great chance for you to be able to play with whatever and then bring any questions you have to the session this weekend on any of these or something you don't see here, and we'll get you to be a little bit better coder.